TikTok, it's time to rock. It is the Zoso show. We always love the Zoso show, and because it's the Zoso show, my co-hosts have come back. They deserted me yesterday, and those messages, those messages that I got from you know who asking where they were, it had nothing to do with anything. You know, it was just that they were all busy doing other things.
I was busy being asleep.
Apparently, I was busy just doing Brad things, like you said.
Doing Brad things in Melbourne. Yeah.
No one knows what that is.
No one wants to know, Simon. No one wants to know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that. Yeah.
It was a good show. We had some good feedback on that, guys. So it might be a regular for the channel. We'll go through and we'll pick some of our favorite YouTube channels, talk about them, go through and show when they started their channels, whether or not they utilize their channels, they take advantage of their channels and community page. Guys, because of that, I had 2 messages from 2 people that we highlighted who said that they didn't know. So they didn't know anything about how to use the community page on their YouTube. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So we're all here to learn, share, have a little bit of fun, and we had a little bit of fun yesterday. And if I get a chance, guys, today, I'll pull up our community page and I'll ask everybody to go through and subscribe to everybody that's on our community page, please. Everyone that's on our community page is a friend of the channel. Guys, we haven't done this for a while either. We're broadcasting the show live here on YouTube, but also on our 2 Facebook groups. So if you're watching on Facebook, say hello to Brad, who's looking hot in that leather jacket.
Look at that leather jacket, eh?
Oh, yes, mate. I rushed straight through the door from seeing my son perform, and this was the attire I wore. So I thought I'll grace you guys with a bit of rock and roll today for Led Zeppelin.
Oh!
Excellent. Ow!
It's good to see you. Good to see you guys, and good to see Brad, the backdoor man, with us. Good to see the Rock Professor. The Rock Professor's going to do a shout out soon. We've got 15 people watching us, and look, the chat's flying too, Simon. So we'll talk to everybody soon, won't we?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Look.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't look at the community page very often on our show because it doesn't show up on iPads for some reason.
Correct, it doesn't. So it only shows up, and that's one of the reasons why, when I was having a conversation, I won't name the person because they asked not to be named, and I said, okay, we won't do that, but it only shows up on Apple iPhones. It won't show up on your iPad, and it will only also show up on your PC and or computers. So that's probably the reason why.
Yeah, that's weird because I was, so I got it on my Chromebook, so I can't see it on here. But yeah, because I normally mess about on YouTube on my iPad, I don't see it, which is it's a bit annoying, really. I don't understand that. The usual stuff, I don't understand.
I must admit, I have to lean on Andrew, but I have to lean on Andrew quite heavily when it comes to looking at. I'm not great with social media at the best of times, but when it comes to the YouTube stuff, I just lean on Andrew. I go, how? What are we doing here? How do we add
and look, to be fair, a lot of that information was shown and explained to me by people that are very close to our channel. Michael also showed me how to attach videos and bits and pieces to the end of videos, how to do cards, put cards in, which was really good. And Fruitcake Tony showed me how to do upcoming streams. So
cool.
Yeah. It's all part, Brad, and Simon, of what we want to do here. People have helped us, haven't they? So we'll help others.
Yes. Shout out to Michael also, the gigging musician. And that guy does gigs, doesn't he? God, he shovels them out. Well done, Michael. Fantastic.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Did you see his? Did you see his three-piece acoustic version of "Whole Lot of Love" the other day, with the drummer singing? That was amazing. I thought they really cracked it. I was like, you can't do "A Whole Lot of Love" as a three-piece acoustic guitar, keyboards, and drummer. Yes, you can.
Michael can do anything, so he's an all-rounder.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, but hats off, and especially the drummer who just went for it and did it. Really good. Yeah, fun. It's good stuff.
So we haven't done a Zoso show for a few weeks now, guys, have we? It's been a while. I think the last one you did was without me with Alan Garble. Can't remember.
We did, yeah. It was, we did the sort of Led Zeppelin 3 type one, wasn't it?
That's right.
And that was with Guitar Hack.
That's Guitar
right.
Hack as well. Yeah.
There was a couple of shows you guys did, which were great. So should attach them to this as well, Andrew, at the end of the show, so people can go back and watch them.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah. There's things to attach, aren't there? Before we start properly, we've got a couple of things to shout out. I've got a couple of things to shout out.
Yep.
One is that this week, 50 years since Ziggy Stardust was released.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there's a big thing on the BBC here, radio about Ziggy Stardust, recording of it and stuff. I've not listened to it yet, but yeah, it was a big show on the BBC. If you're getting BBC radio, Brad, you can have a listen to it. Interviews and all sorts of stuff.
Nice.
Interviews not heard. David Bowie interviews that haven't been broadcast before. They got lost and they've been refound. So that's cool. Yeah, 50 years for Ziggy Stardust this week.
Wow.
And this week, happy birthday, Frank Beard from ZZ Top, 73.
Oh, yeah, Frank Beard. The unbearded one in ZZ Top.
The only one without a beard.
But I was listening to ZZ Top today, so there you go. That must have been in my subconscious.
Not doing your homework. Tisk tisk.
No, I was. Don't you worry about that.
No, I was.
Yeah, I was. I've been doing that all week, so It's a very unique album we're going to be touching on today. So I needed to have my notes right and have my song assumptions right. So we do. That's the other thing too. Sometimes guys, like we listen to the album so much, you sometimes need to put on something different to have a listen to it, just to break.
Yeah.
Go listen to something with fresh ears again.
Yeah. I agree. Rock Professor.
I got this yesterday. I ordered it in October. Thanks to Adele, it arrived yesterday.
Nice.
What is it?
It's a solo instrumental acoustic thing that Ariel did.
Yeah,
I just bought, but I ordered it in October, and due to Adele taking up all the vinyl pressings for the next 5,000 years for her latest album, so we're all behind her. So yeah, they kept sending me messages saying we're behind Adele. Oh dear.
Oh goodness. Yeah, Ariel's amazing. He's a just one of those remarkable musicians. It's fantastic. Yeah. Did you say you're seeing him in October?
I'm seeing him in October. Yeah. He's playing in Bristol in October. So I've got
That's great.
To go and see that. It'd be really good. Yeah, he'll be playing with a 3-piece then. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Ariel's a great musician. So if you haven't checked out Ariel, go and do so, guys.
Yeah, Mr. Posing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, I'll stop digressing.
Yeah. This is a Zoso show, guys.
Yeah, pay attention. Williams.
We got some cool cats in the chat. The Rock Professor, you want to do a shout out?
I want to do a shout out. Yes, indeed.
And we'll kick the show off.
Kick it off.
Mhm.
So, Tim Thomas, good morning. Johnny Heartbreaker. I was but happy to ready. Jazz Thunder 50. Jim, morning, Jim. Keith Campbell, as ever. Good morning, Keith. Gret Zeppelin. Good morning, Gret. The right name for this show. Holly Lewis. Good morning, Holly. Hope you're okay.
Hey, Holly.
Getting your hand sorted out. Be good. Tim Thomas, Holly, Hugh Caldwell as well. Good
Hey,
morning, Hugh. Yeah, Helene O'Hara. Good morning, Helene.
Helene.
Good to see you. Keith Campbell. What else we got? Maybe Hugh Caldwell. Robert Ranford. Good morning, Robert. Hope you're good. And I think hopefully that's everybody that's commented in the chat. If you want me to shout you out, say hi, and I will. I hope I got everybody. But yeah, welcome all. Good to see you all. Hope you're all good. Had good weeks.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Hope you're all well, people.
Yeah, good, fantastic. So
guys, we're touching on an album called In Through the Outdoor today. You guys been listening to this all week, I'm assuming? Doing your homework?
Yeah.
You sure you've been doing your homework?
Yes, boss. We're doing my homework.
Good. No, it's a very important album to in the history of Led Zeppelin. The time frame that they were going through, and obviously, just the album before their drummer passed away, which ended up disbanding the band. As we know, John Bonham was a really big part, an integral part of the sound. So without him part of the group, it was decided that there was no chance that they would continue without him. And on this album in particular, I have to say John Bonham, he does shine. Even when he's playing straight, he's just got something quite unique, and he brings a lot of magic to a lot of these songs we're going to talk about. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, clearly they were having some troubles. I mean, I think they did the right thing by not. I know they had some kind of secret rehearsals with other drummers to see if they would fit, but they couldn't really fit. I think that and I think it's been more difficult for some of them than others. But I think they did the right thing by not finding a different drummer to do it, because I think those four musicians playing together had something really special, something really an integral part of those. And you start taking away a bit of it, and it's not quite the same, is it? I think Jason Bonham did a fantastic job of filling in for his dad in 2008 at the O2 as a sort of one-off thing, as a charity show. I think that's fine, but I think that it was the right thing to do, and I'm sure that Jimmy Page has never quite really fitted into another band, has he? He's had other goes at it with the Firm and Coverdale Page and those things, but they haven't really worked in the same way, have they? As Led Zeppelin, and I think he's become the keeper of the flame of Led Zeppelin, more than he has become carried on with his career as a musician. But it's and I think John Paul Jones has done a lot of other things. Played with a lot of other people. I mean, John Paul Jones would play with anybody. I saw him in a tiny arts theatre with a Swedish avant-garde group a few years ago. A Swedish, I think they're called Supersonic, but literally like 150 seater, little theatre in Bristol, and he was just doing this comfortable improvisation with this electronics group. Just turn up and play. Great.
I saw him playing in Crooked Vultures. That was
them Crooked Vultures. Yeah.
That was fantastic. And I really enjoyed that band. That was would have been nice to see those guys make a few more records.
Yeah,
but do you guys want to discuss the first time you heard this album and what it means to you guys? I mean, I can start if you like. All right. Well, for me, this album, the first time I heard this album, I must say I was taken back, because it's a lot different to Led Zeppelin 2, for example. Led Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin 2. And I grew up watching Song Remains the Same, so it was a lot different in a lot of ways, and a lot of that stems to the reason that we'll get into shortly. But this heavily influenced album of John Paul Jones, he was all over this album. Robert Plant and John Paul Jones, this is the first time that they collaborated like this as well. They've done a few songs on here without any work or any contribution from Jimmy Page, which is something that had never happened up until this point. We'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. But for me, this album, when I first heard it, it took a few listens to grow on me. I love the opening track, and we'll get into that as well. But the second and third time through, I could hear Led Zeppelin, where they were going, and possibly, influenced by the music around them at the time. But they were trying to change things, mix things up as well. For me, it was like in through the outdoor, the first track. When you first listen to that, you are listening to a Led Zeppelin song, and then from that point on, it changes for me. The album tends to go a little bit off the beaten path of what we knew of Led Zeppelin. Many years later, I fell in love with this album because it was different, and that's why I think this album is really important in their history. Because you look at the albums leading up to this, they were a little bit more heavy. They was a little bit darker, and these were, let's say, a little bit more keyboard driven, a little bit more funk on the bass, and a lot straighter on the drums. So for me, I remember listening to it at my friend's house. Luke Foley, his brother, had it there, and I thought it was, to be honest with you, a Robert Plant solo album. That's what I thought before I knew it was Led Zeppelin. But after listening to it, you can really tell it's Jimmy Page on guitar, it's John Paul Jones on bass and keyboards, and you can really tell it's John Bonham on drums. So that's it for me, guys. Like, what do you think, Andrew? What did you think the first time you heard this record?
Because we don't bull crap here on this show too much, I'll be honest and upfront with you guys. When I first heard this album, I didn't understand it at all. When I was a young guy, I was going through listening to a lot of the back catalogues when they became available, either on cassette tapes or if you went to someone's house who had the album. I think I must have listened to it at someone's house, Brad. It must have been because I never had this record. The first copy I got was a CD, so it was quite late. But I'll be upfront and honest with you guys. For a long time, it was not my favorite album. There are some stunning tracks on this album, and I look forward to obviously going through with you guys talking about the tracks. But I'll be, again, Father Time's one of these great little things, isn't it? How we go back and we reflect on, and it's a common theme of our show, isn't it? And it's something that I did without, having any kind of input from Brad or Simon beforehand. But, I think I probably studied this album maybe 10 years ago. When I started getting back into Plant and Page, when you go through those cycles, Simon, when you go through, oh my God, he's in a Jimi Hendrix phase, you used to have a friend like that. Oh, what's it going to be next week? Richie Blackmore, it was like, so, and sometimes it could have been, conceived as a bit of an insult depending on who the guitarist was that you were following. But when I think around the time when Clapton's biography came out, I started getting back into Clapton and Page and Keith Richards, and I devoured everything just about that they produced over an intense period, and kind of dug it. But I agree with what Brad's saying, and I'll end my little introduction soon. It ends. It's definitely a bookmark. Not a bookmark. It's a what's the thing that you use to hold up a book?
A bookend.
A bookend.
A bookend. It's definitely a bookend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to agree. Yeah,
Rock
Simon,
Professor.
Yeah, it's funny. I have to say, this album sort of passed me by. I mean, due to when it came out, and in '79. By '79,
Hmm.
in the UK, clearly, kind of, punk was all the rage and stuff,
Yep.
and that was much, that new wave thing. That was much more the path I was then on in that particular time. So it kind of passed me by, even though I was working in a record shop. So we must have put it on and listened to it. But I think it clearly was not the Led Zeppelin that I remembered and knew from earlier albums. It didn't sound
Yep.
like that. It sounded quite a lot of different. I mean, it actually sounded quite contemporary with that. With that time, because of that kind of synthesizer thing. The keyboards heavy. Clearly, a lot of other bands, were using keyboards a lot. People like the Human League and stuff like that, and that moving into that '80s keyboard thing actually sounded quite contemporary with some of that. But yeah, because it sounded different, I think I didn't really pay it as much attention. Not until later, when they brought out the box, the 4 CD box set with
Remastered.
the best of Led Zeppelin remastered, and clearly a couple of the tracks from here were on there.
Yep.
And so, some of them are, two or three of them are very familiar to me because of that, um, and some not nearly so familiar. So it's been great to go back and listen to it with kind of fresh ears, because I haven't listened to it for a long, long time. Not as an album, not as an entirety, and so it's been great to go back. So I've kind of reacquainted myself with it in some ways, having gone down a different path, and I don't remember it making a big impression when it came out. So yeah.
yeah, it's
I'll just sorry, Brad. I'll just shout out to Mark Effects. Good morning, Mark, and Helen Winter, and the mighty Nelson Rodriguez as well, and Arvin Gaunt as well. So welcome all to the show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Robert, I do have those notes that Alan attached to the video, and we'll discuss those when we go through the
Yeah.
picks. So thank you for reminding me, Robert. You guys are awesome, and we want to do a special shout out to Alan, because Alan is a spiritual advisor to the Zoso show. He is he gives us his blessing to go out there and spread all things Led Zeppelin on the Zoso show, and we acknowledge clearly Alan's authority and experience, because he's been around and in the Led Zeppelin community for a long, long time. So if you've subscribed to our channel because Alan has asked you guys to join us, thank you. If you are watching a replay of this show and Alan invited you here, say hi, drop a note in the comments so that we can say hello back to you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, Alan's our guru when it comes to Led Zeppelin and everything. Everything that's deep within the vaults of Led Zeppelin. He knows everything. So thank you, Alan. We really appreciate. And may I just, before I get into the album itself, I'm just a fan like everyone else here, and I know what I know, but I'm forever learning, and learning this stuff about Led Zeppelin. I know what I know from what I've read, but when I talk to people like Alan Garber, I realise I know very little in comparison. So we'll do our best here to hold up some heavyweight here, and we hope to have Alan Garber on again at some point.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Alan. So guys, shall we deep dive into this record a bit and discuss it?
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I mean, In Through the Outdoor by Led Zeppelin, it's their final studio album. It was the last album released before their drummer John Bonham died in 1980, and obviously that led to the band's disbanding. So very sad times for the band. The group began rehearsing material in September '78. 6 weeks later, they travelled to Polar Studios in Stockholm to begin recording. Now, this album in particular is heavily influenced by John Paul Jones, the bass player and keyboard player, and Robert Plant. In fact, two songs from the album, South Band, and I'll pronounce it the way I do, Sorez, and All My Love, were two original Led Zeppelin songs that Page had no part in writing whatsoever. So these are the first two songs that I'm aware of that were Page had no contribution to whatsoever. And if anyone knows Led Zeppelin well, they know Jimmy Page was the driving force.
Correct.
Now, there's a reason that actually happened, and John Bonham and Jimmy Page failed to show up on time to the recording studio when they were recording the album. Bonham was struggling with alcoholism, and Page was battling a heroin addiction. John Paul Jones has been quoted as saying there were two distinct camps by then. We were, meaning Plant and himself, were the relatively clean one. Many of the songs were consequently put together by Plant and Jones during the day, with Page and Bonham adding their parts later at night to the sessions. Jones was inspired. He purchased a Yamaha GX1 synthesizer, and he was working closely with Robert with that, and a lot of that keyboard influence is drenched upon this album. And as we get into the song listings, you'll hear what we mean by that. And I hope everyone in the chat's done their homework listening to this record as well. Okay. After the recording sessions at Polar, the album was mixed at Jimmy Page's studio in his home in Plumpton. Three of my favorite songs for around this era actually didn't appear on the album, and that's Wearing and Tearing, Ozone Baby, and Darlene. They were all added to Coda, which is a compilation album that was done after they disbanded in 1980. The whole album was recorded within a 3-week period, November and December in 78, and they record in ABBA's Polar Studio in Stockholm, Sweden. It was released on Swan Song on the 15th of August, 1979. They were hoping to have released this album before their twin concerts at Nebworth in 1979, but there were delays in production. And after their performance, it came out on the 15th of August, 79. I think Robert Plant was actually joking about it in some of the bootleg footage I've seen. The album reached number one on the Billboard 200 charts in its second week. It sold 1.7 million copies within weeks of its release. Then, because of this album release, subsequently, their whole catalogue appeared in the Billboard 200 between the weeks of the 23rd of October and the 3rd of November 79. And that's an unprecedented feat, which topped their own record that they actually achieved in 1975, when all their albums up to Physical Graffiti were in the charts. So that's quite a massive thing. I think that's happened to a few bands in the past when they've released an album. A lot of their back catalogue appears in the charts again. In where are we up to? Sorry, I skipped a bit out of my notes here. In 1980, Full in the Rain was released as a single to promote the album. It didn't hit the top 20 in the charts. It was the band's first studio release to reach the top of the charts in the United States. Now, the album was named by the group to describe its recent struggles. Robert Plant's son died. His son, Carrick, died in 1977. They were in taxation exile. The band took from the UK, which resulted in the band being unable to tour on British soil for over 2 years. Then the struggle of the supergroup were trying to get back into the public eye and in the public mind. So it's like trying to get in through the outdoor. That's why they named it that. Now, the album cover was released as like a gimmick. There were some bootleg albums around wrapped in paper, and Alan Garber probably might even have one of these, I'm sure, because he's got just about every other bootleg. And they were stamped with like a rubber stamp on it, and they decided to copy that idea. But they wanted to have 6 different sleeves and they wrapped them in the paper bag, so you didn't actually know what sleeve cover you were getting when you were purchasing the album. So that was the gimmick. The pictures were like where a man's burning a letter, and I believe it says "Dear John" on the letter. Each photo is taken from separate point views. So basically, if later we might show some photos of it, I'm not sure, but the photo,
I've got them.
You've got them. So we'll show those photos when we get to the photo session, and they're really cool. I actually like the album cover on this. Very strange, very weird, but I like the album cover title, "In Through the Outdoor." It really resonates with the band, what they're going through at this time. So, guys, that's pretty much like an abbreviated, because I had a mass amount of notes that I had to cull here because I could be here for an hour talking about my notes.
I
So,
should say,
you guys
Brad,
got anything?
say one thing, that the paper bag thing was also a bit of a joke, because Peter Grant used to say, "I could sell Led Zeppelin a brown plain paper bag." So,
Yes, that was
literally,
another thing.
so literally, that's what they did.
Yeah. And have you guys got anything else you want to add, Andrew, Simon?
I just want to say what an outstanding introduction by our co-host Brad. Impeccable in his detail. When I do my intros, I rope them in to help me, and I don't have any of the detailed highlights that Brad does. So I better start pulling finger, as they say. But
well,
very good, bro.
Thank you, Andrew. I mean, look, the blessing these days is the internet's riddled with right and wrong information. I've got a ton of books here as well, so I was juggling about 3 or 4 books and internet information, and I just had to compile something that was made a bit of flow and sense. So, thank you, Andrew. That means a lot. Simon, have you got anything you wanted to add to that other than the brown paper bag?
Of course, the brown paper bag. No, except to say that I think, you touched on it, that the two camps, and I think that, John Paul Jones is quite, he's a practical guy. They're going to make an album, and 2 of the guys are not really there in this. He's a man who'll get on with it. And I think it's, and I think that's credit to him, really. That that clearly at this point, as you said, Page was struggling with his heroin addiction, and John, Mr. Bonham, was sadly, on the drinking, and there was a gap. They had studio time, but there's a gap. John Paul Jones is a man who will get on with it and do stuff. And I think it's, that whatever you say about this album, it's to his credit that he sort of pushed it along musically, creatively, him and Robert Plant, and made something out of it. So.
Yeah, there's some wonderful moments musically on this record, without a doubt. So, I mean, it's light on Page's influence on a few songs. You can definitely hear that, but there's still some amazing contributions there from Page as well, from Jimmy Page. So, and Robert Plant at this particular time, when we get to it, he's pouring his heart out into one particular song, and it resonates. So you can just imagine what he's feeling through his words and the way he's singing, and which we'll get to that soon.
Yeah.
But I've got nothing else to add, gentlemen. We'll get into the song rankings.
Let's do it.
Okay with that?
Let's do it.
All right. So, In the Evening, from the spooky Gizmotron drone intro that we know really well at this point, we sit back and we listen and we know we're in for a real treat. Robert's vocals in the intro where he goes, "In the evening," it's just got it. It sets the tone for the whole song. You know what to expect, and then when the band kicks in, Bonham's drums explode. His kit sounds absolutely amazing on this record, and I'm so used to hearing a different sort of Bonham sound, but this sound on this is slightly different for him, and it still sounds like Bonham, obviously, and it sounds amazing. His drumming on this whole song is masterful. I love the melody Robert Plant puts into this song. It's got that infectious keyboard sound with the moving bass lines. His bass playing in this song is fantastic. I really think on this album, his bass playing, he stepped up and really wanted to shine as a bass player as well as keyboard. We hear Jimmy Page using his Fender Strat on this song. He's pressing heavy on the tremolo bar. The solo is complete Page brilliance, in my opinion. He heavy depresses the bar to start the solo. The breakdown section is really beautiful. I love those ringing arpeggiated chords behind the delicate guitar playing. The outro of the song is dominated by some vocal and guitar interplay. Look, I love this song, and I'm going to give this 100 out of 10. I think this song, if I back in my day when we used to have, TDK 90-minute tapes and 100-minute tapes, I used to make the best of Led Zeppelin, and I'd pick one song from each album, and this was the song that would always end up as from In Through the Outdoor album in the evening, without a doubt. And this to me definitely sounds like Led Zeppelin. It could be something off Physical Graffiti to me.
Yeah.
Simon.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, I think it was clearly planned as the opening track for the album, as a kind of proper epic track in the grand Led Zeppelin tradition, and I think it succeeds. Apparently, Page said he used the violin bow and a gizmotron effect on his guitar to create the droning. Got the old bow out as well to the return of the bow. Yeah, I mean, there is no one who drums like John Bonham. Just when he's going, somehow there is nobody who does it like John Bonham. Just as you say, playing a straight 4/4, nothing special, and yet it just makes it swing. It's just that just a little bit behind the beat, just makes it just fantastic. I think I mean, me, I can't. For me, John Bonham is the greatest rock drummer there's ever been, and I think just to show, if you want to know how to play a 4/4, this is how to play a 4/4, isn't it? Except no substitutes for lessons. I think that also clearly introduces the synths and things into the mix. Amazing. What the things that was listening about, amazing kind of clanging entry to the guitar solo, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of like somebody drops some sauce with it. And then the page is off. I don't know. Is it a whammy bar? It probably, yeah. I don't know if it's a whammy bar or something. It's just extraordinary kind of entry into the guitar solo, which is typical Page solo. But yeah, I mean, this is a great opening track. It's got a great. But I think the other thing we should say about it's got a great melody. It's got a great chorus. It has a what the classic things has. Yes, the playing. Yes, everything else. But it's a song. And it has a melody and it has a verse and it has a chorus and those things are memorable. And do the hooks, and they do the things they should do. It's a 10 out of 10 for me, and never a skip. Absolutely. Really good, classy opener from On the Struggle. Really good. Absolutely, Andrew.
We are experienced, Keith. We are very good comment. It's a trick song, isn't it? It creeps up on you, doesn't it? With that intro, it's that fading in slowly, and you go and turn it up because you think, what's going on here? And then you get blown away by that synthesizer that comes in. Fascinating, isn't it? The gizmotron sounds something like Waldo would play, doesn't it? The gizmotron. Yes. Yeah. Look, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's definitely a feeling of rebirth for me. And in my research, it's interesting too because of the violin. So the violin and the gizmotron and it's reminiscent of that soundtrack that Page was involved in with Kenneth Anger's Lucifer Rising. There's a little bit of a connection going on there, guys. And but it's a song that flexes its muscles, doesn't it? It gives us that familiar warm fuzziness that you would expect listening to a first track on a Led Zeppelin album after all these sort of like spiky little tangents. I love it. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 too. It's one of my favorite songs. Clearly, as the rock professor said, clearly picked for a solid reason as an opening track as we go on and talk about some other tracks, but definitely picked for the opener.
Yeah. And it has the riff, doesn't it? It's, as ever with these things, great Led Zeppelin song have a great riff, and it's got a great riff.
Yeah, and I do think, and I'm sure Alan Garber might correct me here if I'm wrong, and please do. I'm pretty sure the start of the solo is depressing the bar on the Strat. It's like, he's sort of banging it out and releasing it to get that sort of clank. It just, how he does that just sounds fantastic.
It's phenomenal.
It's a great song, and probably for this era, one of my
premiered
favorites.
at Nebworth too, apparently.
Yes. Yeah. And so it was a song they were using live within the set. So then the next song, we're up to song 2. Where are we? Southbound Ceres. This is a heavily influenced John Paul Jones song. I think it's a great second song in. It's you definitely couldn't start an album with this song without probably a third song I would have thought, but good place for it. It's keyboard dominant. The John Bonham beats on the drums are percussive and really hold this song down, in my opinion. The solo is aggressive. The guitar solo is aggressive at the start. Jimmy Page almost comes off the rails a few times, but finishes in fine Page fashion. I put it down to his style of playing at this particular time, and probably some of the influence he was under as well. But I love, and I've always spoken about this with Jimmy Page, how he managed to always stay like a train on the tracks, ready to come off at any minute, but stayed on. It's just remarkable how he managed to do that. I love how the outro of the song's got multiple vocal tracks happening. That's really well done by Robert Plant. The song definitely highlights John Paul Jones, in my opinion. I gave it a 7 out of 10. It's never a skip. I wouldn't have put it on my greatest hits of Led Zeppelin, one from each album, though. Simon.
Yep.
No, I think I'd agree with that. I think that it's one of those things that to me it's a bit like Boogie with Stu from Physical Graffiti. It's a thing you'd put on as a curio for on a double album or something like that. I mean, it'd be be interesting to see, as you mentioned earlier, the 3 tracks they left off. Whether if you put one of those in its place, whether it changes the thing, I don't know. But it's I think it's usually Led Zeppelin albums are they have that kind of variety, but within a whole. Whereas this is quite a different thing to the previous track, to In the Evening. Which doesn't, as you say, has that starts off with that really fast kind of rock and roll piano, conjuring up images of New Orleans barroom or something, or I've heard it described as a cross between Little Feat and the Faces, which I think is probably quite a good description of it, really. The drums, you'll notice, are mixed right back in for the first time. They don't really have that Bonham sound. Do they have a different sound to them that I think is more in keeping with the sort of rock and roll thing? I think also that what's interesting is that there's a couple of rock and roll things on here. That kind of harking back thing that is Robert Plant. Robert Plant definitely part of that rock and roll. That's one of his cornerstone things. Is it's that rock and roll, and they went on. They did the Honey Drippers, didn't they? Which was like that rock and roll album they did with and he's always kind of been in that space, Plant, in that rock and roll space is part of his DNA, his makeup as a musician and a singer. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. It's a kind of second song. I mean, I've given it 7.5 out of 10, so I'm in the same kind of ballpark as you. I don't skip it, but no, I don't think it's one of those. I would call it a filler, or myself as a track really. So I mean, as you said, it's not it's not has no Jimmy Page composition credits on it, so you can tell where it's coming from. Plant and Jones in that rock and roll thing. But no, it's fine. I just think it's a light song, light, and so 7.5 from me, and not a skip. Andrew.
Well, the mystical, moody introduction from the first song and those ethereal lyrics to this pounding endurance test of piano chords by Jonesy is just remarkable, isn't it? And the rock professor hit it on the nail when he said, that New Orleans kind of feel. It's something that that resonates the album cover for me. That's where this song will be played when you look at the album cover. Look, it's not my favorite song, guys. You got that doo-wop solo fade out in the end, which is pretty good. It could be a sometimes skip, guys. It could be, but I'm not going to give it anything less than a 7. But it could be a sometimes skip. Brad, you said it's not in your top 10 or your top list of Led Zeppelin songs, and I think the reason why it's because it's just doing something different, isn't it, over here? And we like difference in Led Zeppelin songs, but I think it's doing something different that's not connected to anything that I can cling on to and say, yeah, baby, I love this difference. There's a couple of other songs coming where we can do that, I think. But no, this could be a sometimes skip. So does that time me out, gentlemen?
No.
Definitely
not. No, you're not. You're safe, Andrew, because I rate it 7 anyway. So
yeah,
we're all in the same ballpark with that one. But that's not putting it down. It's just it is what it is, and and John Paul Jones is the highlight of that song for me, without a doubt. So next song on the album is "Fall in the Rain." Look, I love this track. It's what I call rock and samba sort of music combined. The drum beat is masterful. It has to be one of the drum grooves that's been copied a lot throughout the history of music. Jeff Porcaro from Toto has been quoted as, that influencing for, I think it was Rosanna, and Phil Collins and a bunch of other musicians were very heavily influenced by drummers. I'm saying influenced. I call them musicians too, guys. Were influenced by this. There's some fantastic keyboard parts in this song. The bass lines in this song are fantastic. The bass playing in it is great. The guitar playing really complements the song. Like Page is really trying to play like a song arranger, and even though it's something he didn't really have a lot to do with this song in particular, I don't think, but he's playing. He always tries to complement the song, and he does so in this really well. The middle section of this song, it's hit or miss for me. It seems a little bit cheesy for Led Zeppelin. I'm going to say it like that. I will say that, Robert was pretty big on the band trying different things and sounding different as well. And so full mark and credit for them. And there's some fantastic drum and percussive beats in there and whatnot. It's not some of my favorite piece of music by Led Zeppelin in the middle there, but when it comes back in, it's like gives you goosebumps when it comes back into the song again. It's fantastic. I have heard bootlegs of this when they're recording it, and they stopped where the song stops and the middle section comes in. I believe that was done after I could be wrong. The solo's got that real choked up octave fuzz sort of tone. It really fits the song perfectly. Page is a bit sort of at times it seems like he's a bit just filling the gaps a little bit through the solo in this one. But it fits the song perfectly, and I've heard it that many times that way. I couldn't imagine it any other way. But I think Robert Plant really sings his ass off in it, and I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It's never a skip for me. Simon.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is one of the great drum beats, isn't it? I mean, it has a, and we should say that it's based on I mean, it's really Bernard Purdie shuffle. I mean, he first did it on Steely Dan's track "Home at Last" and Asia. If you listen to that, that's where it is, and John Bonham certainly got it from Bernard Purdie but adapted it to himself. But I think that it is one of the great. I mean, it's an astonishingly swinging kind of fantastic drum beat that just makes I can't imagine anybody not dancing to it, to be honest. The foot taps immediately. It's going. It's got great melody to the song as well. I think credit to John Paul Jones for conjuring up the melody and driving it along. I agree with you about the bass playing as well. Bass playing, really good bass playing as well. I mean, I think yes, the middle bit with the kind of samba style piano and the marimba kind of breakdown, it's kind of apparently it was inspired by the Argentina World Cup in 1978 as a sort of has that South American feel to it. I like the fact that Plant does quite a lot of singing melodically, and his voice is like another instrument almost. That's the way that he treats it. Sometimes it's not about the words he's singing; it's just about the melody that he's doing and the sound. Just fantastic. And also, I noticed at the end there's a kind of Spanish guitar bit as well, isn't there? That seems to come in at the end. I hadn't noticed it. I went back; it wasn't there before. A classic bit of Jimmy Page. Added interest at the end. 10 out of 10 for me. I think it is a great track, and I think I'm giving it 10. For the drumming, the drums as much as anything else. I think it's such a classic beat. You put it on, it's just amazing. So 10 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. Andrew.
No one outside of Led Zeppelin would have thought that they would have come up with this song. There's no hint of any Latin influence on any other song that Led Zeppelin have done. And clearly Led Zeppelin are influenced by other forms of and styles of music, aren't they? Look at funk with the grunge and reggae with Dyer Maker, and a little bit of country with Hot Dog, so the fact that they're sambaed and, influenced by, the World Cup football fans, good English guys watching Maradona in the hand of God and all this kind of stuff, it was probably a lament to the English football team, Simon, Who knows?
I'd like to point out that 1978 wasn't Maradona.
Wasn't it?
That's 86.
86, sorry.
Maradona. Argentina won the World Cup in 78 in Argentina.
Yeah, sorry.
Madonna. Not with Madonna.
Madonna.
With Maradona even.
Yeah, that was 86 with Glenn Hoddle. Wrong World Cups.
Yes.
Look, I'm not surprised that they would come up with something that's a little bit different, because we've been exposed to it before in the past, haven't we? I have to echo Keith's comments in the chat about the isolated tracks, and it's a theme that we've discussed many times. One of the great things about YouTube and these computer programs that guys have, you can go and listen to all these isolated tracks and waste Sunday and Saturday afternoons listening to stuff that you probably haven't heard, isolated ever. And I agree, it's a phenomenal drumming track. I just don't know how this guy does it, because it's otherworldly. And because of that, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's not my favorite song, guys. So I don't dig that kind of style. It's not my groove because it's not my groove. But I dig what they were trying to do, and I'll give it a 9. Never a skip though.
Yeah. Originally, my ranking was 9 as well, but I dropped it just because I had the way I've ranked the other tracks on the album, so I can't do it. So, but it's definitely, I mentioned in my opening of this album how unique and amazing John Bonham is on this record.
Yep.
And that is one of the songs that I was referring to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we get to the next track, which is a song called Hot Dog. It's making me hungry just thinking about it. But yeah. So I believe this was a jam that sort of turned into a song in pre-production. It has a real rockabilly feel, some wonderful country-ish guitar licks and lead playing from Page. The piano from John Paul Jones is fantastic. I love the shuffle feel Bonham has on this. He's got such an amazing feel at the best of times, but I love when he plays this style of shuffle. The solo is choppy and loose, and then tightens up and loosens up, and it's just Page doing his best country impersonation, in my opinion. I can also hear other influences there, Elvis Presley's sort of guitar playing and things like that, like the guitarist from Scotty Moore. I was trying to think of his name. I can hear Scotty Moore's influence on this song in particular with his guitar playing. Robert's singing on this is the highlight for me. I may upset some people here. I probably would have preferred to have heard Wearing and Tearing or Darlene on this album as opposed to this song. But then again, I'm going to give this song a ranking of 7 out of 10, and it's never a skip. Simon.
Yeah, yes. To me, absolutely, it's kind of, because they did the Everly Brothers, didn't they? In the middle of A Whole Lot of Love on How the West Was Won, they go into that Everly Brothers bit.
Yep.
And to me, this is clearly kind of based on that kind of Everly Brothers, as you say, Ricky Nelson, Hello Mary Lou, came to mind immediately as the kind of basis for this song. Again, I think this sort of rock and roll thing, rockabilly thing, is very much Robert Plant's influence into the band. I think it's where part of his heart is, and also it has a kind of lineage with the Honey Drippers, as I said earlier. That later on they did that much more of a rock and roll thing with. And Robert's always had that kind of thing in him, that rock and roll thing that he likes so much. And so I can see where it came from. I can see, if you listen to How the West Was Won, on Whole Lot of Love, when they go into various kind of rockabilly things, and Page is kind of changing the tones of his guitar to suit us, which is great, really good fun. I agree with you, kind of like a rockabilly, but it's got fuzzier guitar time, isn't it? The tone is kind of fuzzy. I don't know if he's got a fuzz on it, but it definitely struck me as having not quite that clean country thing that you might expect as a tone from that. But I agree with you also about Robert's singing as well. The harmony stuff is really cool and things. I give it 7.5 out of 10, and I don't skip it, but again, I think it's one of their lighter songs, more lightweight songs, sort of B-sides, put it on a B-side of a single, something like that, as a bit of a curio, something of an interest myself, rather than a particularly an album track. But Andrew.
It's a mess of a song, in my opinion. Plant has a great time riffing on pickup trucks, U-Haul trailers, and a general store, but the words themselves aren't country, and Plant knows better. Page is the rock god, and why is he suddenly? I just Yeah.
Not your favourite then.
I'm just trying to read my notes here. Sorry. Look, I know the Stones did this a couple of times. They did a version, didn't they, on Some Girls? Where Mick is talking about rushing through red lights and all that. Yeah, look, I don't know, Brad, what they were trying to do here. I'm reading the comments here where Hugh Corville's saying it's great fun. I didn't see it from that perspective. So maybe it was a song clearly that the band liked to play. And I did some research today and found out, Brad and Simon, that they actually played this live a few times. So if they're playing it live, they must bloody like the song, eh? So,
well, they did it in Nebworth. They did it in Nebworth.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So clearly it's a song that the band likes, and we all know that, don't we? We know that sometimes a band will put a song on a record because they want it, and we may not be able to work out why it's there. For me, I can't understand. I know why the other song that we've just ranked's on there, but I think that, if they wanted to do a country kind of song, Brad, I just think that they could have done a little bit better than this. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, and it's most often a skip.
Whoa!
I think Simon's going to time you out, Andrew.
No, I'm not time that at all. No, it's personal opinion. It's fine. It's I know what you mean. I mean, yeah, Andrew, you're right. I mean, we've all alluded to it. That it comes out of their pre-production rehearsals and kind of joshing about and stuff. And I agree with you entirely that that it is. They go, oh, that's a jolly little song. But instead of putting it on the B-side of a single or something, you put it on the album, which is my point.
Put it on the bloody album.
Ooh, well, yeah, they go, yeah, let's have it on the album, but which is fine if you're doing physical graffiti, and you get, and you've got, say, things like Boogie with Stu and Down by the Seaside and stuff like that. That's fine because they fit in and it's, they're just fun little numbers, but they're on side 3, yeah. When you're kind of stretching out a bit and doing things. And
hey, Will.
But morning, Will. But I think you're absolutely right about that. As that yes, they didn't have Page at his strongest production-wise. Going, yeah, fine, guys. It's it's good to have a lark about and stuff. But is it on the album? No, it isn't. Kind of thing, And I think without that kind of that focus and that control. It makes it on.
Yeah, and only a band of the caliber of Led Zeppelin, I think, can get away with putting this kind of song, in my opinion, on a record, which is prime real estate, isn't it? A record back then is prime real estate.
Yeah.
And it's a lowbrow studio jam. But, Brad, you're the musician here, bro. I like it. I want it. It's going on here.
No, I agree. I mean, I like I said in my assumption of the song, in my analysis of the song, I probably would have preferred to heard Darlene on there, probably, or Wearing and Tearing, which is one of my favorite songs from this period, or even Ozone Baby, which was a pretty cool tune too. So, I would have thought that would have maybe Led Zeppelin up the album a little bit more, like from the physical graffiti sort of sound or something like that. But anyway, so we've done enough bagging out and ratting on for enough. What do you reckon, guys? So
testing,
the next
1, 2, 3.
Carousel Umbra. So for me, I don't like having to rank this song because it's a very hard song to rank. It's a long tune and it's got a lot of different changes in it, and it's a bit of a journey. Definitely keyboard and bass orientated dominant song. There's some masterful drumming from John Bonham in it. We hear some really beautiful drone chordal work from Page on his double neck Gibson. Plant's singing is great. There's some nice changes and breakdowns. I love the section at about 4 minutes 30 into the song. Heavy John Paul Jones influence on this song, without a doubt. There's certain parts of the songs I don't like, but then there's certain parts of the song I really do like. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. But again, I'll go back to my comment. I reckon could have heard Darlene or Ozone Baby or Wearing and Tearing in place of this song myself. So, but 7 out of 10 for me and never a skip.
Yeah.
Simon.
Yeah. It's a
No,
really
no, Simon, time out, man. Time out.
What?
Time out for that. No. You
in the corner.
Actually, you
better.
better.
Oh,
Yeah.
Look at
Good.
that.
Yeah. All right.
What? Are you suggesting he's giving it far too high a score?
No. Well, what are we going to time you? Okay. Well, you better start giving your synopsis then and your ranking.
No. Well, yes, I agree with. I mean, to me, this is first thing I tell you, it's very much of its time. That synthesizer heavy kind of is where things were going in 1979. If you think, I always think of the 80s, and the 80s start before 1980 in musical terms. It's that kind of synthesizer thing, isn't it? All those bands, like the Human League and all those other bands. I can't think of any of them, but all those other bands that basically were Spandau Ballet, Duran Duran. They all basically had all these keyboard things, for synthesizer keys for the same time. So you've got this explosion in what keyboards can do, the sounds they can make, and all in fairly compact things. So I think that there's an experimentation in this that is part of that 1980s thing, and I feel it's of its time to some extent in terms of its sound. I think some of it is quite. I can hear echoes of people like Emerson, Lake and Palmer in it. Doing that. The keyboard stabs, very kind of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, late period. I think that it's, for me, it's a really interesting song, and I really like it. As a song, I think it's got loads of different parts. In that sense, it's classic Led Zeppelin, isn't it? It reminded me that if you change the keyboards to guitar, you'd have one of those long Led Zeppelin songs that has all those different parts that are worked out, and all those different things that fit together, all those sections that fit together. And this is exactly the same as that, but it's keyboards and not guitars, which I think is the interesting bit. I think you can hear Jimmy doing different things with his guitars. There's different guitar sounds, there's like chimey descending lines, and there's big heavy chords on the slow bit. Again, the use of dynamics that we talked about Led Zeppelin a lot. That they've still got that, and they're still using it in these things by being loud and quiet, drop down, come back in again, drop out, come back in again, come back in with big kind of slashing chords and stuff. It's you've got to be a great band to sustain an interest over 10 minutes, a 10-minute song. For me, it does that. I think it's it's the start. It could have been a pointer to a completely different direction for them. I think it's a very John Paul Jones new direction. Look what I've got as a new thing. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10, and it's never a skip for me. I think it's it is one of their classic tracks. Has all the hallmarks of classic Led Zeppelin to me, but using keyboards and not so much guitars and things, or mixing the guitars and the keyboards up and not having those to create the dynamics. So I'm all, unlike Brad, I am all for it, and I really like it a lot. So it's 10 from me.
Yeah, the intro synthesizer hasn't stood the test of time. It's a little bit flat. I'll give you that. It's certainly a product of the time, but at that 21-second mark when Plant enters and those lyrics, and then it becomes apparent, isn't it? His voice is mixed low, compared to the keyboards.
Yeah.
But that's okay. But you know, then you start reading a few little bits and pieces. You start picking up guitar magazines, and you start watching a few little bits and pieces, and you start working out a few things. I'm not a theorist at all when it comes to musical guitars. You know, I just play rhythm and blues. I'm a blues man. I'm pretty simple, but you know, one of the great things about this song, and it's a manifesto for a lot of other songwriters that probably don't highlight this song, but if you go digging, they'll pick and they'll point to this song because you know you've got this thing apparently where you've got I'm just gonna that specific chord movement, Simon, where music theorists it's called third relations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a well-known device that composers use with two chords. So clearly, what John Paul Jones is doing with this song is he's backing up his music theory as a composer.
Yeah.
And look what he went and did after this as a producer of other bands. And you and I have said this many times that the bass player is always going to be the musical kind of guy because he's listening to all these other instruments that are going on around him as opposed to the guitar player, which is out front. You know, the bass player, and if we've ever tried to play bass in a band, you know, you've got to sort of sit back a little bit and listen. So clearly, it's a manifesto of where John Paul Jones was going inwardly as a musician, expressed outwardly. He had 10 minutes to do that. He took advantage, Simon, of the fact that Page wasn't around to maybe cull and trim the tree back a little bit that he may have done. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because bands do that, don't they? You know, Paul McCartney did it when John Lennon was mucking about on drugs. You know, he took the leadership and pushed the band forward. And we're seeing this again, you know, time and time again. There's lots of examples in rock and roll history where an individual in the band who's, you know, not the designated leader has come up and pushed the band forward. The Rock Professor on many rankings with us has pointed at songs as manifestos. For me, this is a manifesto of the end of Led Zeppelin and where music was going. John Paul Jones got it right. He knew exactly where music was going to go in the early 80s. And Simon, you've just said it. I'm old enough to remember Visage, Duran, all these keyboard bands, Human League that were coming through and dominating. Flock of Seagulls. These bands were dominating the charts. 10 out of 10 for me. Never a skip.
Ah. Mr. Cook, you can come back now.
He was having a hot dog.
Hot dog. Hot dog.
I just want to say I did give it a 7 out of 10. I can't rank it. The same amount is what I did. You know, in the evening, for example. You know, I can't give it a 10 when I gave that 100. You know, so it's not. That's where I'm at. So
okay.
Not bad. But
I'm sorry if I'm a little high.
No, I timed out just to please the boss. I can't do anything.
How do I get back to this thing?
With my absence, I've lost where I'm up to. So I think we're up to All of My Love. That's what we're up to.
We've done Carousel La Rumba, Carousel. Yes. So people are just commenting, bro, about the vocals. So I'm testing 1, 2, 3. How's my vocals, guys? I've just turned my gain down a bit.
Am I better than that? Because my mic levels were low, and I've turned them up. Holly, is that better? Is that more balanced?
You sound okay to me.
Let's see if somebody will say something in a minute. That's all right. Yes.
Andrew, we've got a couple more songs to go, but maybe it's a good time to show a couple of photos.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hold on.
Probably,
Give me 2 seconds, brother.
We skipped it, so we might
Good, okay. Am I too high, Johnny and Keith? Or is that okay?
He's high as a kite, high as he like.
Holly, thanks for pointing it out. It's really cool.
So yeah,
Right.
here is Zeppelin. This is Zeppelin in 1979. John Paul, Jimmy, Robert Plant, and John Bonham. It's a cool photo. Oh, this is our wonderful friend Alan Garber's notes. Do you want me to read them out? I've got them here.
Let's take turns. So I'll read the first one, followed by you, and then have you got Garber's notes there, Simon?
You're testing me to the limits now of my technical abilities. Yes, I have.
Okay, so the first point that Alan's saying, sorry, I can't join, gents. In Through the Outdoors, an overlooked album in their catalogue. The Gizmotron is used on a Stratocaster in the intro to In the Evening. No bowed guitar at all. Brad.
Carousel Umbra. It's a bizarre track, but it is one of only 2 Zeppelin recordings to feature Jimmy's Gibson double neck. The 12-string neck was used on Carousel Umbra and the outro of Achilles' Last Stand. Simon.
Yeah. So according to Jimmy uses the MXR Blue Box for the sub-octave fuzz effect on the brilliant Les Paul overdubs on Fool in the Rain.
Interesting.
Cool.
Bonham's
interesting
drum.
Sorry, Andrew. Just going to say, interesting that Alan says the beginning of In the Evening has no bowed guitar in it at all. That's interesting. I thought it was in there as well, but clearly not.
Well, that's what Alan's saying. But,
yeah.
There's probably other information out there that might contradict. So, as Brad said in our intro, what we say here and the points that we're pointing out aren't fixed in stone. So, if anything we've said or we're saying you disagree with or have evidence that points otherwise, please drop it in the notes because we're all about education here. Bonham's drum sound and playing on Fool in the Rain inspired Phil Collins' drum sound on his Face Value album, and the main groove inspired by Jeff's groove on Toto's Rosanna.
Jeff Porcaro.
Yes. Of course, this album is Jimmy's first use of the B-bender on a Zeppelin album. My favorite moment on the entire LP is I'm Gonna Crawl, where Jimmy's B-bender Telecaster dripping with emotion. I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll get to that. And he says, All My Love features overdub steel string acoustic, which I think I picked up, nylon string classical during a guitar solo, and electric B-bender Telecaster. Simple song, but skillfully recorded with layers of guitars. Yeah, I think I picked that up. Certainly the acoustic, the Spanish guitar. Good spot.
And the last point that Alan makes for us. Thank you, Alan, for these great comments. We look forward, as Brad said to you, coming back, joining us for a live show. Jonesy shines on the whole album. Many songs were written by Plant and Jones primarily. Rock and roll.
Yeah, absolutely, Alan.
I wish
so these are pics
on that T-shirt.
Yeah. So these are pics, guys, from Nebworth that we're going to flick through now if you want to know where they're taken. So what does that say, Brad?
Led bloody Zeppelin. That's who.
What would they say today? They wouldn't say that today. They'd say something else, wouldn't they?
Yes. Much worse.
Yes.
Don't even do it. Don't even do it.
No, we won't even beep it. We'll just assume we all know what it is.
Well, the B word will be an F word.
Yes.
Hey, keep it clean, keep it clean.
Steady now, steady now.
Look at that, though. They're all
Oh,
sitting
dear.
there, enjoying the sun, having a few pints.
Having a few spliffs, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Free Brad
Yes.
Cook.
So in the header of the discussion of this album, I mentioned there were 6 different album covers, and these are the 6 here, which is I think the main one that we will identify with is my favorite, but they're cool pictures nonetheless.
That's the
They're
main
very
one
cool.
there, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, that one with the bartender facing him there.
That's it.
Just but very very cool. It's a cool idea. I thought what they did.
I agree. Very, very smart. Very clever.
There's a great photo there at Nebworth. Robert with his unbuttoned shirt. He always had the majority of the middle of his chest showing. Always. Jonesy, Bonzo, and a very wiry, skinny Jimmy Page there. Yes. The boss man, Peter Grant, Robert Plant, and John Paul. That was probably taking a break during recording. Oh, at Nebworth, was it? Nebworth, that would have been.
Looks
Nebworth,
like Nebworth,
yeah.
doesn't it? With those huts in the background. Temporary calm.
That's a classic promotional photo.
Notice the kind of shirts and ties going on with the plant and Page.
Creeping into the 80s fashion.
Yeah, with a jacket and stuff. Yeah.
Except for this dude.
No, he was always. It just looks like a dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys there, look at that, the grey suit. That was, seemed to be famous in the 80s.
All the rage. All the rage.
Simon used to wear an apricot jacket with grey seats.
With your sleeves rolled up.
Yes.
Dude.
With this Don Johnson stubble going on, didn't you, Simon? In your kung fu shoes with no socks. Woo, doggy.
Whoa, yeah, no socks, baby. Espadrilles and no socks and a grey linen suit. God, a peach shirt. Come on. That's it. Dude on the town. Come on.
This is Nebworth with not the rock professor there.
Oh goodness. Yes, you can, and isn't it funny? Like you see, John Paul sort of facing the way he's facing. It's just like he's always got in his peripheral vision somewhere Bonzo, John Bonham on the drums.
Yeah.
Page is looking very worried there, bit scarecrowish.
Look how delicate he is. Very delicate. He looks like he could break, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Robert Plant, classic shot.
See, shorter hair and cruising towards the 80s.
Start to lose the bum parts and then bringing in the fringes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the puffy pants, the blue shirt on Jimmy Page, and a Les Paul that looks almost as big as him. Robert Plant. This must be the conclusion of the gig, I'd say.
Yeah, looks like it. And Jonesy is playing a what's that bass? An alembic bass. Yeah, an alembic bass, which is unusual for him because he's normally playing jazzes, isn't he?
Oh.
Yeah, I think again it's part of that move away, isn't it, from the traditional stuff to more modern stuff in the 80s, apparently.
And there's the old man.
Yeah.
It's a good photo. Very cool photos.
So somewhere in there is Jim's mate, because Jim in the comments said that one of his mates managed to
Went
scarp
there.
her off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somewhere is Jim's mate.
Let's just say he's right up the front there somewhere. We'll pick a shirt color and say that's him.
These are the official program. Again with that famous photo.
Yeah, just a slightly different. They all turn and face the camera for this one. I don't think Bonham moved at all, though. I think the other Bonham's just like, that's all.
I'm not moving.
I'm just want to go to the pub. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pagey with his double neck.
The double neck. Yes.
Is it just me, or it's the skinniest I think I've really seen Jimmy Page look?
Yeah.
Look at that crowd. That's just insane.
August the 4th. Yep. And one more pick, guys.
Yeah, they turned away from the camera again, except John Bonham. He just same pose. It's just going, come on, fellas, we're going to go to the pub.
So what's the comments here? What have we missed? Led who? Yes, it's true. I love my MXR Blue Box. It works. Oh, wow. Jimmy's solo, I'm pretty sure. Okay, all right. So Nelson knows. Nelson agrees.
You can speak with dolphins. Fantastic, Nelson. Speaking with the dolphins.
Simon Crocker and a Lambo. Yeah.
Yeah, baby. The shades, the Lambo.
None of it was happening. None of it was happening. I can picture the rock professor in 1980 just getting into his car with his skinny little tie on, his Miami Vice suit.
Keith reckons he was skinnier. Oh, okay.
In the firm.
Keith reckons he was skinnier in the firm. I think Keith might be right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
The firm, he did look pretty. Yeah. Well, guys, we're up to the last two tracks of this album, and for me, they're beautiful final two songs for the final studio album. All of My Love, I think it's a beautiful song. I actually love the keyboard sounds in this. Bonham's drumming in this is wonderful, and it's a credit to him. His style was unique, and the way that he plays on this song, he plays so delicately, but he puts in the beef when it's needed. You can hear the heavy hitting and stuff like that. I've heard in a bootleg a raw take of this before the overdubs, and the drums just sound absolutely bombastic. They're just massive. So with the mixing, they've obviously tidied them up a bit. Robert's vocals are wonderful in this, really, really heartfelt. The lyrics are fantastic. I will note that this song was written about Plant's son, who died when they were touring in 1977 on their North American tour. Carrick, his son. So obviously it evokes a lot of emotion and memory for him in this song. And it definitely gives me goosebumps listening to this song. Jimmy Page complements the song with some beautiful B-bender guitar playing. And the solo he puts on this with that acoustic solo is fantastic as well. I love the John Paul Jones solo in this on the keyboards. I think it's a wonderful song. I've always enjoyed it, but I think, when you start putting into perspective the whole album and you listen to this, I have to give this song a 10 out of 10. It's never a skip for me. Simon.
Agreed. I think it's the other, it's one of the other classics on this record, and you can tell from this that they had, they had the makings of a really, really good record, a really interesting record with, pointing forward at new places to go, new places to take the music and stuff with John and his synthesizers and things. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that no one can play a 4/4 beat like John Bonham, can they? It's somehow there is just something unique about the way he does it. And fantastically, that chimey guitar, I thought it might be a slide, but it's the B bender, is it? Yeah, playing the B bender. Yeah, that's good. So thank you for that. I've learned something. Again, I think that that there's great different parts to the song. I think it's got a great melody. I think let's not, all the best Led Zeppelin stuff, all the best, have really good melodies, and this has a really good, really good melody, really good, descending chorus kind of thing, going down, which is lovely, and there's a real hook, and they know how to do hooks. I agree with you. The Spanish guitar playing as well in the middle is really cool. Again, as a change, as a different bit of the palette you've taken out and put a splash of color on. I think it's 10 out of 10 for me, and never a skip either. I think it's a lovely song, and and different to what they've done before, really, in a different way than what they've done before with the synths. Andrew.
Thank you, guys. I just want to make a quick comment. When was the Arms concert that Page did with Clapton? Because he was on heroin then, guys. So the guys were just talking about whether or not he was straight or on something when he was with the Firm. Yeah, I don't know, but I know that when he was on the Arms concert, he was still on the H, which was credit to the guy that he managed to survive.
1983 was the Ronnie Lane Arms benefit.
Okay, so he was still using then. So, yeah, it's a credit he survived, isn't it, Brad?
He was not looking good in that, like physically wasn't looking very good in that show.
No, it's one of the... Yeah, and look, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we are going to do on the Zoso show. So one day when we do a Zoso show, we'll get some photos from that era and we'll just talk about that era for half an hour, because it's really important, because maybe that was the kick up the backside that he needed to get back. I'd like to think that it was. So, but we've got all these different theories. We can throw them in there. We're back to ranking the tracks. Look, Simon and Brad, I got to tell you guys, when I did some research for this album this week, I was stunned and mortified by these hacks dishing this song. It's amazing how many people, so-called, establishment experts, didn't like this song. They gave Led Zeppelin crap because how dare this great band craft a pop song and have a song that has a chorus and just repeats all of my love, all of my... How dare they do that? But that's precisely why they did this. Because they wanted to prove, didn't they, Brad? At least I think that they could craft a well-constructed pop song, and they did it because it blew the charts away. It was one of their favorite songs, well received on the tour through Europe. I'm not going to add much more to what the guys have said, other than I love the song. I always have. Like a lot of these albums too, guys, that we talk about, it's a song that's scarred into my memory because it's been played on radio here in this country for years, Brad, since I was a boy, a young fella. So it was the one song that I knew off this album. It was the one song. So I have to Brad score this song, and
hey, yes,
and shame on you, hack experts, not guitar hack.
Yes, shame on you, guitar hack. Yes,
not guitar hack. You hack journalists.
No,
Oh,
I'm really, really glad Simon mentioned the vocal melody, because I left that out of my notes by accident. But Robert Plant always wrote good melody in songs, vocally, and his lyrics always complemented the melody more than some writers write lyrically and don't worry about a melody, but he was all about getting the melody right. And this one song, All of My Love in particular, he gets it dead smack on. You couldn't come up with a better melody whatsoever. So it's a beautiful song for his son.
Yep. One of his
And
best vocals.
and I have heard a lot of people say that that they've played it to loved ones and things like that. So it's like a love song as well. So it's it can be seen as a love song as well, if you want it
Well,
to
you're
be.
right, and Keith's going to back you up because he's just made a comment here. All the critics hated it because they weren't expecting ballads. So, but we're rockers and we love them.
Yeah. So up to the final song, and I feel like I need to give a conclusion before I go through my rankings. But I'll do it at the end of this song, maybe. Like I'm Gonna Crawl. It features that beautiful little intro from John Paul Jones, which seems to be like an interlude into the song. And the song really takes off when Bonham comes in on the drums, and it's got that bluesy swagger. I'm a big fan of Zeppelin, the way they played the blues, Since I've Been Loving You. This has kind of, for me, like a very laid back blues feel, and Robert sings his ass off. Whereas the light and shade of the song hits when it really goes hard. Robert's doing, like, especially the part in the song where Robert's singing every little bit, every little bit, every little bit, my love. He's really giving everything in those particular parts, and he pulls it back. I absolutely love the guitar playing in this song. That nasal guitar tone on the solo. It's like Jimmy Page is on the edge, There's some really beautiful choices of notes he's playing. He's sweeping through some of those licks, like not like just the way Jimmy Page does it. There's just something quite magical about his playing. There's something really sad about listening to this song too. When I was listening to it, and this is the conclusion part I was sort of getting at, is you kind of hearing the last song on a Zeppelin album. And I think it's a wonderful last song on the album, and it's a wonderful last song for their studio career. I gave it a 10 out of 10. It's never a skip for me. Simon.
Yeah, yes, it's really interesting, isn't it? That for me, it's kind of in the same. It's like an updated version of Since I've Been Loving You. That's kind of my reading of it. That kind of slow blues thing that's not quite blues, but is blues. It has that kind of C down to A flat kind of run that it does in the thing, which is, and I think the intro is like a film score. It's like I'm completely divorced of what you're actually going to get in a funny, but in a kind of film noirish kind of way. Kind of sets up that kind of smoky R&B soul thing. I'm using R&B in the '60s version, not the 2000s version. That kind of and clearly they went for that kind of Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding type feel. Again, tremendously kind of atmospheric, a great singing from Robert Plant, lots of soulful singing, and I picked out that every little bit as well. Brad as well made a note of that as the double time part where he sings that as well. Great soaring solo from Jimmy Page. I think it's probably his best moment on the record, to be honest. And when he does that scream at 4:43, there's that kind of, he does that, really lets rip. Oh, that's spine tingling moment for me. On that, it's like, whoa, listen to that! Somebody really going for it, and the cool kind of scat singing at the end. It's 10 out of 10 for me, and never a skip either. I think it's a kind of bit of a sleeping classic myself. And as I say, for me, in line with Since I've Been Loving You kind of thing. Andrew.
Awesome. So the lyric, calls she is my girl and she can never. Sorry, read properly. Cause she is my girl and she can never do wrong. If I dream too much at night, somebody please bring me down. So sometimes maybe if you're lucky in life, you can get to sing those kind of songs to girls. Clearly, Robert Plant has, and he's in love. He's going through a bit of a relationship thing at this stage in his life. According to Chris Welch, who we love, because he knew the artists, and the artists spoke to him candidly. John Bonham said that he thinks that this is Plant's best vocal performance. So we'll take Bonham at his word there. If we thought the previous song was a great set of vocals, well, then it just meshes into this, doesn't it? And at that 3:20 mark, where Page reaches deep into his soul and he finds that guitar solo that is worth crawling to hear, I think is phenomenal. It's one of the best little tasty licks. And as Brad said, I want to echo Brad by saying that's a fine little solo for one of the greatest rock guitarists the world's ever seen on a studio album that he did with one of the greatest rock bands the world's ever seen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well,
100 out of 10.
Yeah, well, 10 out of 10, maybe 10 out of 10 time, 100 for you. I'm glad we're all on the same page there. It's an amazing song, and I've really, really enjoyed this album. I mean, you think about it, the first time I heard this to now, when I listened to it, it's contrast, massive contrast. I was expecting something different the first time I heard it. And now I love the way this album sounds and the way that it is heavily John Paul Jones influenced and the keyboards. But we mention a lot that the keyboards are quite the heavy influence on here. But have a listen to John Paul Jones's bass playing on a lot of these tracks, and I think it's some of the best bass playing he's ever done.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think Johnny Heartbreaker's comment here is on the money. It feels like the only song that they were all together again on the album. They started with the blues and they ended with the blues. Great comment.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So that concludes.
That is a really good comment, Johnny. Really good. Really hits it.
That concludes In Through the Outdoor. So I hope everyone's really enjoyed this one. I have. I've really enjoyed Simon and Andrew's analysis on the songs, and I'm going to go back and listen to them with another pair of ears now.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's, that there's a couple of things that occurred to me while we were talking about it. One is that the rock and roll thing. What occurred to me is, of course, that around 79 there was a kind of bit of a rockabilly revival. Andrew, I'm sure do you know there's a Robert Gordon Fresh Fish special with Link Ray, which is if you don't know, is a fantastic rockabilly record. That's from 1978.
Link Ray.
Yeah, which is, I don't know, Brad, if you know about Robert Gordon.
Rebel.
Link Ray I've got them. I've got the first two, which are brilliant with Link Ray. But that was around at the same sort of time, and there was that kind of rock and roll thing going on, that rockabilly thing going on. The Stray Cats were not till 1980, but they were around then. And I think it's, that it's kind of, it's interesting that this album is kind of, got its fingers in those pies as well as the kind of keyboard 80s synth pies as well. And I think it's, I think for me, it's like, as people have said, I've got some, some of the reviews here and stuff, I think, that the comments are that it's, it's like an art rock oddity with some alluring tangents. And I think that some people, other people have said, that it's a kind of, lacks the unification of previous Led Zeppelin records. So it has, and it's what we've described as a series of songs, which are good, some of them really good, but not quite with that, but as a kind of transition to an album they might have made in the 80s, with all those synth textures and the guitar textures, and Jimmy Page doing his guitar orchestration bits. You can see that there are areas that that they could have easily moved into, which would have made their future albums really, really interesting, but really different, but also contemporary for the time as well. You've got to move with the times, haven't you? You can't be Led Zeppelin in 1968, 69 in 1981. It's not really going to work. And I think that they, like any bands, they move and they change with the times. They pick up the new tools, synthesizers, and they start using those because they're interesting and they're new and they've got different sounds, and you branch out, and some of it works and some of it doesn't, and that's the way, so I think it's, as I say, I think that the description that it lacks that unification but has some really good songs, I think is a really good summing up of it as an album. And I would urge people who don't know it to go and check it out, because it's got some really great moments on it.
Awesome. Thank you for the super chat, Nelson. I vote
Nelson.
I vote Jeff Beck. Go and get that Jeff Beck Stratocaster. Shearer's Music Store had one. They had a Jeff Beck Stratocaster with the metal nut and all that. I played it for about 30 seconds. It's a beautiful guitar.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Seaphone Green as well on a Strat.
Yeah,
it's a sexy look. I think that would be the one to choose. But they're both beautiful guitars. So I think you raised a very valid point there, Simon, about the future of Led Zeppelin. If the what if, which is something that I like to talk about. What if Bonham didn't pass away? What would have happened to Led Zeppelin through the 80s? What would have happened? And would it have kept going this direction? I've read things around that 1991, 92 period where Page said that the next album was going to be very guitar heavy. So, so who knows? But we'll never know. But, back in 1981, 1982, they might have kept going along more of an electronic path, keyboard path sort of thing. Who knows? We'll never know, unfortunately.
No, but I think it's like a lot of things. It was worth a release, and it's worth its place in Led Zeppelin's thing. And as a bit of a pointer to what's happened next, a bit of a transition album. But I think that's fine. That we understand it for what it is. And I think that's Jimmy Page's view of it as well.
Yeah.
And hats off to John Paul Jones for taking up the cudgels and driving it forward and keeping it moving. When others were having their troubles.
100%.
Yeah, well, it was an album that put them into the touring circuit. That brought tickets into the concerts. So the fans liked the album, and certainly the single was a powerful single that was going to drive that album forward. What's interesting though is that, as Brad said, who knows where the span could have gone. I think if I'm going to take a pick or a stab, they would have gone down that synthesizer electronic music, and no one would have bashed them for it. If they pulled out 2 or 3 albums in the early 80s, no one would have bashed them. They would have just been considered, just following trends. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll never know, unfortunately.
No.
I'm glad they didn't.
And imagine being so unfashionable, and you play at Nebworth and you get 218,000 people the first night and 187,000 the next night.
Phenomenal. Yeah, it's interesting too. We had Alan on, didn't we, on one show, and he pointed out one little thing too that we had to remember. Well, we got to remember. He said, that there was a period there right through the 80s where Led Zeppelin weren't fashionable. They weren't a fashionable band.
Yeah.
No, they absolutely were. The early 80s, they were not. I can remember, have I told this story? I can remember vividly having not really listened to them, in the very late 70s and early 80s, being at university and in 84, and being at a bus stop waiting for a bus in the West End, having visited my friend, and having Led Zeppelin 4 and and rock and roll coming in, and me having the hair stand up on my head. It was like, bloody hell, how did I think this was not fantastic, idiot? And I and it was just like da 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 da, and it's like, it was electrifying to me back then. It kind of, I sort of had to pull myself together, and I've never looked back. But yeah, it's fantastic. So hats off to them.
Awesome. I've enjoyed listening to this album, Brad. Thank you. You've got a very good habit of picking albums that juxtapose impressions, feelings, and emotions, and certainly frustrations, because that's what it's about, isn't it? It's like, why is Hot Dog on this bloody album?
We can explain it to you.
Yeah.
But you don't have to like it.
No. It's been a great great experience. Good to do the Zoso show. Great introduction from Brad, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys are watching back on our show, and if we've given some scores or some opinions that you guys want to contradict us on, we're happy with that. Put any comment you want. We'll come back. We know Led Zeppelin is a big subject and a big topic for a lot of people, and we'll answer them, won't we?
100%. 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're out of here, but before we go, the Rock Professor's got some juicy news.
Well, this week, the great James Paul McCartney will be 80 years old. And to celebrate this momentous, I should say, I've got a question for you as well. To celebrate this momentous occasion, we are going to rank the tracks of Band on the Run. Freudian slip there. Yes, Band on the Run.
Band on the Run.
Band on the Run, not Born to Run. Band on the Run.
I was just about to say, I can't remember.
You don't remember that?
Paul McCartney doing an album called Born to Run.
That's because he blimmin' didn't. Yes. Yes, we're going to rank the tracks of Band on the Run next week in honor of Sir Paul McCartney's. So here's my question to you and people in the chat. So, Paul McCartney, which is better, a knighthood or I Was in the Beatles?
Don't answer now.
Don't answer now. We'll answer next week. That's my question for next week: is which is better, I Was in the Beatles or I Got a Knighthood?
And what I'll do is I'll add that to our community page. I'll do a poll if you guys want to. I'll come back and I'll do a poll on our community page, which is better. Add a comment, and we'll engage that next week. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I cheated. I listened to that album today in the morning when I was doing a few little bits and pieces. Another interesting album. So I look forward to digging deep with you guys on this album. But Paul McCartney, my lord, 80 years old. My gosh.
I'm looking forward to doing that album. Simon, I haven't listened to that album for a very long time. At least a couple of years that I can remember. Every time I go to put Paul McCartney on, it ends up being a Beatles record. So I enjoy the album, is what I'm saying. I really enjoy the album, so I'm looking forward to it.
No, be good. Yeah, fantastic.
It's one of his best. It's one of his best, isn't it? It's one of the best.
Yeah. Yep.
Because he's done some shockers.
Not in his eyes.
Well, you know, we love Paul McCartney here. We love Clapton, but you know, they've, you know, that mid 1970s period for some of the artists, it was a difficult few years for some of them.
Yeah, that's true. It was
100%. I agree there.
Yeah.
Are you reading the comments here? Your favorite Springsteen Beatles album?
Dear God.
Whichever one impresses the girls more.
Yeah. Yes. I've had no coffee yet. It's been a long morning.
Go and get some coffee and go get some rocket fuel into you, Simon.
Yes, definitely.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us live. It's always a pleasure that you guys can hang out with us. We started a little bit late today, but it was a good reason why. We'll be on time, hopefully, next week. If you are watching and you like what you have seen and witnessed, if you think that we've said anything valuable or viable or entertaining, please share our link on your social media accounts. We do thank you for all the shares. If you guys want to be part of our community, for us to help share what you guys are doing, whatever project you're working on, let me know. Let Brad know. Let the Rock Professor know. We'll do it. We'll do everything and anything we can to help you, because that's the least we can do. Rock Professor, I'm going to ask you to say a few things, and then Brad, you can say the final one because you picked the album. Then we're out of here. Hot dog.
Hot dog. So indeed, yeah. Good morning, Johnny Bean. It's Andy. We're just going, but good morning, Johnny. Hugh Caldwell, Keith Campbell, Led Zeppelin, Holly. We've had Will Varela as well. We'll be ranking Will next week because he's 100 apparently. Oh dear. So yes, Holly Lewis, Nelson Rodriguez, Keith Arvin, of course. Good morning, Arvin. Hugh Caldwell. We had Helena Horror, didn't we, earlier? We had Johnny Heartbreak, of course. Great comments from you, Johnny. Thanks so much for your input. Really cool. Okay, Will, Holly. Look at that. Lots of Nelson. Sorry, guys, it's scrolling back up. Try not to miss anything. Marky Effects as well was in earlier, and Helen Winter was in earlier as well. So thanks, Helen. Jazz Thunder 50. Jim. Thanks, Jim. Good to see you. He, like me, wakes up early. I think that's probably everyone we've had. Robert Ranford as well. Don't forget Robert. Simon. So thanks. Tim Thomas as well. Cool. Thanks, Tim. Helena O'Hara. So that's back to the top. So hopefully I got everybody. Hope I didn't miss everybody. But thanks all for joining. It's been really great to see you. Thanks for your great comments. And Alan Garber's as well. Great stuff, Alan. Thanks so much for your notes and comments. That's really cool. And we'll see you next week. Brad, that way.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for joining us and in the chat, and anyone who's watching us later. The subscriptions are going crazy. We can't be more grateful, and thank you so much for being part of our journey. We're really enjoying this little growth spurt we're having, and I think it's a credit to these two fine gentlemen I'm in the chat with, but it's also a credit to you guys that are subscribing and sharing our channel, because we're just three dudes that just love music, and we're just chatting about it. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
see ya.
Cool. See you next week. Take care, everyone.